What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a long-awaited episode of Collider Ladies Night. Sophie Thatcher for Heretic. Do you know how many people online have been bugging me to have you on the show? And I'm like, the time will come. We're going to make it happen. I'm determined. And I'm so happy it's happening for this movie because so good.
Thank you.
The three of you are incredible together.
Thank you.
What is the movie you watched, the performance you saw, personal experience you had, whatever it may be that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
I wonder if Chloe said the same thing. Gina Rollins, A Woman Under the Influence. Did she say the same thing?
She didn't say it in this interview, but I do like a stupid amount of research, and I found the interview where she said that.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like, to me, that was like, I just kept studying her performance and rewatching it. But that was a really big moment. And I went on a huge Cassavetes deep dive, read his biography, I watched his movies, and it just kind of changed my perspective on filmmaking, collaboration. I've loved the filmmakers I've worked with, but it would be amazing to like work with a filmmaker where it was like fully collaborative. And like, I know it goes back and forth between improvisation, where it's like you think with a lot of Cassavetes stuff, it's improvised, but it's not all improvised. There's just fantastic actors. But I would love to have a script that feels like that. I mean, that's always the goal of artistry.
I feel like now I'm trying to think of films that had more of like an outline and then playing within the outline to craft.
I know some filmmakers that do that now. Yeah. And there's something so exciting about that because you do all your research before and then on the day, you kind of just get to not do whatever, but like there's more freedom and more room to explore.
I feel like that's a wonderful creative opportunity for someone as talented as you. Improv like that would just like cripple me.
Oh, it's horrifying, but that's why I want to do it because I want to challenge myself. I took improv classes as a kid. And that's when I first started having panic attacks. Because I was like, I'm the least funny person here, but you don't have to be funny to do improv. That's the biggest misconception about improv. When you try to be funny or think about it, it's the most awkward. Like, you just have to, I mean, in acting in general, you just have to rid yourself of ego. Especially if you're doing a horror or anything. It's like, you just can't think about yourself. You have to disassociate.
This is why I sit in this seat and I let you do all that kind of work. Yeah. So you identified the itch to act. I feel like the next like big step in that process is like believing in yourself, because everybody knows it's so difficult to make it in this industry. So do you remember the first thing you did that made you stop and think to yourself like I'm good at this and I deserve to be here? I
felt very intense about it early on. And I think my parents both knew that I was really dedicated and took it very seriously. I was just always a performer. I feel like, I guess doing Prospect and working with such cool people and feeling like I could hold my own in my first movie and feeling like it was natural, I was like, oh, this is exhausting, but it's really something that is satisfying. Like I'd never felt, it was really stressful, but I'd never felt so emotional. It would like go back to the hotel and just feel like everything was heightened and everything in life just felt really, I don't know, I looked at everything differently because I was excited to be doing something and I was like 16 and very just like angsty, like fuck my life. But then I finally did that and it just brought back this like passion that I guess I had when I was younger when I was doing theater, but doing movies is like a different, more immersive experience depending on the film.
What a beautiful experience to have. I feel like that movie might be the answer to this question, but when you were first starting out, do you remember anything that a co-star who was higher up on the call sheet did that, you know, wowed you, that you appreciated and kind of back-pocketed and wanted to apply to your own work when you became a leader on set, both a leader as an actor, but also as someone who could set the tone on a set?
I feel like Pedro Pascal is fantastic, and just watching him, I was always in awe and how like quickly he could go to such great emotions and such heightened emotions. I loved how Duplass would improvise with me beforehand, and then we would get into the scene, and he was very keen on world building and character building and asking questions. So So they were great examples. I think Melanie Linsky is the perfect example of a number one, and anybody could say that. She's just like a really beautiful human being, and she's just lovely and makes everyone feel like equals. And I think watching her from afar, because we don't really get that much time with her, but watching her from afar is just like, okay, like if I'm ever going to be a number one in a show, you treat everybody with respect. Mm-hmm.
You're surrounded by so many wonderful people.
Oh, no, I know.
Like I'm in the process, everyone knows, of like working my way through the entire ensemble on ladies' night, and just, I don't know, like the level of passion for the craft and supporting one another and having it be a team effort is just, it's always like leaping out of everyone's answers in a way that I think matters, and in a way that maybe more sets should kind of like grab and hold tight to.
Oh no, we got lucky, and it feels like a family too, because we were working on it at such a crazy time.
Oh, I'll bring back a question that I asked the three of you earlier, because I believe this with Heretic. I believe it's a perfectly cast film, and I believe Yellowjackets is a perfectly cast show. Do you remember the very first time you were with everybody, either on set or maybe in prep, and you kind of looked around and said, like, we really are a magical combination for this show?
I feel like we were all very skeptical, and I feel like because we were so isolated and didn't really know what to expect of this show, I think we were all and actors are usually pretty insecure. So I think throughout most of the filming experience, because it was so intense, all of us felt pretty darn insecure. But I think, I don't know, I remember watching the pilot. They sent the pilot because there was that long break between the pilot and shooting the first season because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the pilot before going into shooting the rest of the first season, and I was like, I would watch this. Like, there's something really special and authentically 90s here. Not that I would know the 90s, but it just felt like, I don't know, it was like hitting everything the right way, and it was tonally correct. Because I was thinking, that's what I was scared about. Like, there's like a very fine line with camp, and I think our show is just the perfect amount. And that's where I was kind of like, oh, like they get it. The intro, I think that watching the intro for me, it's really grown on me. Because at first I was like, this is so Tumblr. And it is, because kind of, if you look back at it, you're like, this is very Tumblr. It's very like Effie Stoneham skins, like. But that's what I thought. But I'm also like a very different generation. But the more I watch it, the more I was like, yes. And I still love it so much. And I think that's when I was like, oh yeah, they get it. But I guess that's not with the cast, but I think it's just with everybody collaborating and finding the right tone.
It is an unskippable intro.
I love it. And even the song. Yeah. And it's just like.
And then you had the cover last season too.
I know. So good. Yeah.
So good.
They're doing a good job.
I'll stick with the Yellowjackets cast for a little longer. Yeah. I love asking this question because I'm just endlessly fascinated by how many different approaches to acting there are out there. Of everybody in that cast, can you pinpoint the two actors with the most polar opposite approaches to their work, where when you're their scene partner, you know you'll have a different acting experience?
I don't know. I feel like, for me personally, I feel like I change certain methods depending on the character and depending on who I'm working with. Or sometimes it feels more natural and I can like go in and out. Or sometimes I have to like do that emotional prep and do all of the backstories and like remain in that headspace throughout the day. I think, I feel like Sophie and Elise has this amazing ability to like snap out of it and go to these crazy, insane places and just be fine. And just because it just shows how like that raw talent. And I think that's something that I admire that I don't always get. And I feel like to some extent Natalie has kind of creeped into like who I am, which is a crazy thing to say, but like we're 3 seasons in and I feel like playing Natalie is the most natural thing in the world. Whereas I feel like Sophie doesn't, I mean, maybe she disagrees, but Shauna, like, a very complicated character, and I think they're very different. Mm-hmm. But I just admire how, like, she can snap in and out of it. And for me with Natalie, it's like, I don't know, like my voice is lower now. I feel more, like all these little tiny things that I can't really let go in my body. But then also, I don't know. I feel like everyone kind of, their approach changes, and it's not like, I think Liv is probably the most like in it and remains in it when the camera's not on them, which is a really admirable quality. And sometimes I don't do that, and I really wish I could, but I just get really exhausted, and I can't always give everything, and I think other people feel that, but Liv is just like always giving and always there to react. It's a very admirable quality. But then it's also like with Sophie and Elise, it's like insane, that raw talent that she has to just like go to the screaming scene and then talk about pasta or something.
I still can't get episode 6 out of my mind.
It's haunting.
And then someone told me you had to reshoot some of it, and I'm like, oh my god, she had to do that twice. Something happened with the camera card.
Yeah, that was like almost a joke. I remember. I mean, I didn't have to do anything. I just remember feeling for Sophie like, this is worst case scenario in every single way of the awful.
She was something else in that. You're all something else in the whole show. Because we didn't get to talk about the end of season 2, I got a couple of end of season 2, perhaps beginning of season 3 questions here. The first big one that I really wanted to ask you was, when did you find out that Juliet was not going to make it through season 2? And I guess, how did that rock your perception of the character, knowing that her journey would come to an end eventually?
There was always talk about it. I had a feeling it was coming. And then we had this New York Times shoot together. And she was like, by the way, I'm not going to be on the show anymore. And I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I saw that coming. And I think it was, like, hard for her because she, like, has been writing her own scripts. She performs in her music band. Like, she has so much going on. And I get it, like, to be in and to be playing Natalie, like, that's kind of messed with me in ways too. Like, it gets really dark. But she, told me that she wasn't doing it anymore. And I remember being like excited for her because I can't wait to see the stuff she's written, or like more of her music, the new movie that she's in. But then I also felt like your character dying is like a loss because I've spent so many years playing her. She felt really tragic, and I remember bawling during the read-through. But then now, like, going into season 3, I do have a sense of freedom, and I'm a little bit maybe less obsessed with, like, pinpointing the voice. And, I mean, it's probably in me now. But I think there was a little bit more freedom, and I could play around. And I was less pressured to, like, I think the first season, I was just like, I don't know if I'm, like, comparable to her or, like, as intense as her. That was always my biggest fear, that I wasn't as intense as her. But I think season 3, you start to see more intensity. And that I felt more room to play around just because, I don't know. I think it was also just with season 3, less pressure on myself because I've been doing it for a while.
I'm so excited to see more. I still think about it.
I think it'll be a good season. It'll be a really good season.
I've got very high hopes, a lot of faith in all of you, and I'm just sitting here impatiently waiting for new material.
We finished 2 weeks ago. Or I finished 2 weeks ago. I wrapped earlier than some people. But yeah, I think it's going to be a satisfying season.
Ooh. I like that.
Yeah, satisfying, yeah.
Okay, satisfying season, I will take that. And I will say an early congratulations, because wrapping a season is a big deal.
Yeah, thank God.
Before we get into Heretic full force, I have to ask you one particular question that I've been revisiting a lot, because MaXXXine put this question in my mind, and I love the thought. You know this because you're in the movie. Elizabeth Debicki is playing a director, and there's one point in the movie where she says that if the movie that she's making takes off, she's going to get to have a more meaningful voice in Hollywood. So because of MaXXXine, I've started to ask this a lot on Ladies' Night. When you first entered this industry, how did you define having a meaningful voice in Hollywood? And now, all these years later, has that definition evolved for you at all?
I guess having a meaningful voice means partaking in something creative that you want to be a part of and spreading your artistic vision and collaborating and being an open collaborator. I think that's the goal. And I've been very lucky to work with like really collaborative people that are, even like I said with costumes, people that are like down to listen to what I think this character should look like, or the soundtracks, like what I think. I feel like the more roles you get, the more you're allowed to collaborate and have a voice. And I think that, to me, is the most exciting thing. So I think it's stayed, and I think it's going to be ever growing the further I get into my career, which is exciting because it's not like taking control, but it's just getting to have an artistic voice.
I like that. I like the fact that those meanings do evolve for us, but that's like a pretty strong core you've got right there.
Oh, yeah. Thanks.
So, tiptoeing into Heretic, I had a broader question about horror to start because, I'm a very big fan of the genre. I follow all of your work throughout the genre.
Oh, yeah.
What is it about horror that feeds you most as an artist that's drawing you to all these horror films, or is it more of a matter of kind of like where the industry winds are blowing you?
I think it's both. I think I'm naturally drawn to darker pieces. I like being really emotional, and it feels natural to be emotional on camera now. I feel like I'm always crying, and it just feels like a release. It can be very draining at times, but I don't know. I think there's so much artistry in horror, and there's so much creativity to be had, and so much surrealism, and you can play with like the depths of reality and like just so many different things that when you're in something that's, a bit more grounded, you're a bit more confined. So I think with horror, it gets to be more fantastical, and you can use your imagination more, which is great. But I would love to do things that are more grounded too.
I want you to do everything.
Thank you.
Again, horror's my number one, so
Same.
Please stay here as long as you want.
I know. Yeah. But it's just hard. It's hard.
I get that. I have a big two-part question about horror directors, because you've worked with some of the best, Scott and Brian here, Ty West, Rob Savage, Karan Kusama. I could go on and on, really. Do you find that the horror directing greats have any shared traits, but then also what's something about Scott and Brian that made them stand out?
I think Chloe brought this up, and I hadn't really thought about it, but I think what was so interesting about Scott and Brian was that they were very aware of possibly how the audience will perceive the film. And I think because they know, they're very self-aware, but they're also just, they know the horror film, like how a good horror film works. And I think because there is a bit of a map to it, I think a lot of horror directors are aware of what audiences feel, that I think sometimes when you're doing other genres, there's less awareness, because it is really about making that impact in the audience. Whereas when you're doing, something that is more grounded, it's more just about like being in the moment with the actors. So I think that's interesting to get that perspective and think from that point of view, which is making me interested in like possibly wanting to direct or write.
Hearing that.
Yeah, but I think it's just interesting to get that point of view because my mind doesn't naturally go that way.
Ooh, I want to see you get behind the lens now. I'm gonna get real greedy. I'll go to Chloe next because you just referenced her. I could talk about the value of a good scene partner all day long, and the two of you are just perfect together here. Can you tell me something about the way she works that you appreciated and maybe even teed you up for success with your own work in the film?
Yeah, I mean, she was perfect to act off of. She really did her work and like fully became that character and just brought this like unexpectedness and this earnestness and this likability that is within her, as you could tell from just like meeting her. She's so likable and so charming. I mean, she's just like brutally honest as an actor. Courtney has that too in her, where it's like I can never see them lie. Like, and I just watch them every time after time, and I know I lie as an actor. So I'm saying like I can recognize, and it's like hard to always be honest, and it like really tears at you too. But watching that, and I think that's why she works so well. And like that last monologue, watching it 2 days ago with my family, it just broke me. I started bawling. Yeah, she's so good and so nuanced. And so, I mean, yeah, I think that it's like she delivers a lot of the lines in a really unexpected way. Whereas like you read it on the page and it could have just been kind of flat or kind of like, funny. But she's like, she goes into it physically, like she is that character. I think she's very, I don't know, she's like transformative as an actor, which I think is sometimes rare to find.
I said it to her before. There's so many lines in this movie where like it either works or it doesn't.
Or it doesn't, and it's all dependent on her.
You make it work, but to the next level.
Next level.
And make it so uniquely your own. I was
know.
so impressed by that.
Me too.
I wanted to make sure to include this question, mainly because this is another repeat question, and Ella Purnell actually put this in my mind, because when we were talking, she was telling me about, that experience when you're trying to find a character, and then you have like that aha moment where you do something and you realize like, who they are now. Did you have that with Sister Barnes here? And if so, with what scene?
I think it always helps doing rehearsals with Chloe. I think when we had that like going up the stairs with the bikes, we were improvising. She had some like really funny moments. But I think because I grew up Mormon, there was this like physicality that I wanted to bring back that felt like this tension. So I think it's very specific and strange, but the mock neck helped with my posture and my tension. And I noticed a lot of like tension in my neck throughout it. But I think that helped with the subject matter. But I think like building that costume and then doing the improv with her and like finding that like the nervous laughter and saying, oh my gosh, a lot. And just like thinking in my head, oh my gosh. Because that's like when I was a kid, all I would say. It was like specific little like tics like that. And I think it was about like finding the tics. Because then once you're in the body, it's about finding the physicality first. I guess there wasn't like a aha moment, but it was just about like little things like that where I was like really just like thrown into her.
Well, those things matter to
they
make
do
it
matter.
Feel like authentic and whole to a viewer. And
totally.
I think you do that exceptionally well here. That bike scene stressed me out. Like the thought of you two carrying the bikes.
Oh, it was the hardest scene for me. I was like, yeah, Chloe. And she's like singing and like talking, improvise this thing about like Costco. Like she was just being hilarious as she usually is.
Job well done with that particular moment as well.
Thank you.
We have hit the final question of Ladies' Night. Every single Ladies' Night interview ends with this particular question. In film and television, we give each other awards. Super cool. We should keep doing that.
Yeah.
I find that nobody tells themselves good job as much as they should. Can you tell me something you accomplished making Heretic that you know you'll always be able to look back on and say, I am so proud of what I did there?
I'm like, this is really hard. Well, I guess acting alongside Hugh Grant is cool. And I thought, I don't know, there was a fear of mine that I wouldn't be able to like be as vulnerable or open or as confident. But I totally was. And I was confident. And thanks to him, thanks to Chloe. So to just like have that confidence and hold my own, I think is it's a big deal. It's a milestone in my career from myself.
You do big time. You hold your own opposite a legend like him. And because we were just talking about Boogeyman, like you're one heck of a force in that. Like,
thank you.
I mean this. And I'll curse now because it's towards the end of the video, so it won't get flagged. You're a fucking star.
Thank
Seriously.
you. Thank you.
I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
You.
I am so excited for everyone to see Heretic. I can't wait to see more Yellowjackets. Congratulations. Come back to Ladies' Night soon.
Thank you. That was an amazing interview.